So I've been involved in more ads than I'd like. It actually has gotten to the point where it's a little weird. There's been a few ads we've put a lot of money into because they work really well. And I was sitting in a sauna recently, and this one guy's looking over at me, and I'm just sitting there, like, kind of a little uncomfortable. I have a towel wrapped around him. Why does this guy keep looking over at me? And then I see him lean in to say something, and he's like, "Are you that guy from the internet?" And I go, "Oh, okay." Whew. Yes.
Luckily, that was when you had your towel on, not off.
Yes, it was uncomfortable for a moment there. And if I'm on the company social media, it's because the social media manager asked, "Hey, I think this would be fun."
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
We're joined by Dan Demsky, the co-founder and CEO of Unbound Merino, a brand that's redefined minimalist, high-performance fashion with timeless merino wool garments. From bootstrapping a business with his two best friends to building a $40 million global brand beloved by travelers and entrepreneurs, Dan's journey is a masterclass in storytelling, crowdfunding, and scaling a company remotely as a digital nomad. If you're looking for inspiration on how to simplify, innovate, and grow, this episode is for you. So, Dan, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to be here.
So, Dan, digital nomad, that half the time I think that's bullshit, because you should be sleeping next to a loom on the factory floor like Elon Musk if you're running such a big business. Talk to me about, first of all, what is a digital nomad, and does...
I think that from the outset of starting my business, we set it up so I didn't have to be going to the office, and I do like going to an office. I like working around people in real life. That's important to me, but I don't like feeling confined to one place. Sometimes I get skittish and I want to leave, particularly because I live in Canada. There's a good portion of the year where it's not as fun as other parts of the year, like right now, for example. So I'm planning my escape. So in creating the company, we always intended for it to be remote. Let's have most of our meetings online. Let's just start it that way. As the company started to grow, we were already remote. So if things got a little bit more complicated, we started to try to seek the tools that allowed us to continue to run that way. So for example, when it was just me and my two co-founders, we did all our communication on Facebook Messenger. There was only 3 of us. It worked. It was fine. Everything was there. But as the team started to grow, one group chat didn't make sense. So you get Slack. Simple. Doesn't sound like much, but those little changes happen and compound over time, and they go into every corner of your business. And now we're past 30 people, and it doesn't feel more complicated. It feels just the same, because with every new person, you start to feel the friction points and adjust. And I think any company can be, you can't be a remote auto mechanic, but most companies, if you just need to meet and think together, you can do it. So it allowed me to have the freedom to be wherever the sun's shining, wherever I feel like being. And I think a lot of people in our company are very, very happy because they also have that same freedom that I have.
I suppose it's a different type of mindset. And you mentioned that there's certain roles that work well being on premise versus digital. Can you tell me I'm just going to go back quickly to the $40 million. Is that Canadian dollars or US dollars?
Yeah, Canadian dollars. Dollars, I'd be a billionaire.
I was doing a little bit of mathematics on here, and if at 40 million, and maybe in Canada, then this is going to be different, but at $40 million business, you're in the top 0.6 to 0.8% of businesses in the US. So in Canada, that means you must be in like the point. That's a relatively large business. And this goes into, how has this changed your life in terms of recognition in the business environment, and perhaps from the government keeping an eye on you generating this much cash? Because I know you're a socialist there, and the government loves capitalists. So what are the advantages of turning over that amount of money, and maybe some of the disadvantages? And then we'll go back into the digital nomad side.
On a business level and a governmental level, yeah, you're exposed more. And I find that every single time we feel like we're getting to a new level, like something comes around the corner. And that's not just in Canada, that's in the US too. We start selling a lot into California, and then the state of California is knocking on your door saying it's time to pay state tax. I'm like, okay, I don't even know how to do this. So you have to hire a compliance lawyer and an accountant to help figure out how to do US state tax. And then get that set up, and then it's Georgia's knocking at your door. It's just one state after the other, one thing after the other. Fortunately, as it gets more complex, we have more resources to solve the problems. And compliance is an important thing in all businesses, and compliance looks different in every business. So, I mean, the only difference in my life from having gone from being a scrappy little startup with no outside funding. I mean, we started this business with $1,500. And I had no access to money. I don't come from money. The only difference from that stage and now is we have some money to throw at problems, or to be resourced and have leverage to do better things. We can hire people who are better than us at that one thing or that other thing. But nothing feels different. I feel the same. We still feels just as hard and just as fun. And I still have the same relationship with my co-founders, who are my best friends. And it's more fun. It still feels like day one every day. And that's what I love.
That's amazing. Well, let's go actually into what the business is, because I just skipped over that part, in terms of how you do make your cash. And that's unboundmerino.com. Talk to me about, you started with $1,500, Canadian or US?
Canadian, so it's like 50 cents.
I'm sorry, I'm in Norway, so our money is not worth, it's about just under 10 to the dollar, so that sucks. $1,500 starting a company with merino clothing. I mean, first of all, what's the difference between merino and cashmere? Is it the type of ducks that you take the skins from, or
Yeah, well, it's wool. I mean, cashmere is a beautiful fabric. It's just a different fabric. Merino wool, a lot of people, when they think of wool, they think of a warmer fabric, something that you might have as a scarf or a beanie or a thicker sweater for colder weather. But there is a very super fine wool, and merino wool could be different levels of fineness. So we make a super fine merino wool, like I'm wearing it. It might, to the untrained eye, look no different than a cotton t-shirt. The weight of it is quite similar to a cotton t-shirt, but it's more breathable, it's temperature regulating, it's wrinkle resistant, and it's odor resistant. So it makes for a really, really good travel shirt. Because of all these properties, instead of packing, 14 t-shirts, which you may want to pack for a 2-week trip, you can get by with 3. Because you don't need to throw it in the laundry every time you wear it. Similar to like a pair of jeans, which you may not wash after every time you wear it, because it's antibacterial. It's never going to smell. It repels dirt. It doesn't wrinkle. So we have grown on the premise that we can help people pack light for their travels. So the people who choose to pack with just a carry-on for whatever trip they're going on, they love our stuff. Because when you pack merino wool t-shirts, you have the ability to go anywhere you want in the world for however long with just a carry-on. You can make it happen. So that's what our brand's all about. That's the problem we solve. Yeah, people love it. I mean, we make an amazing product. We put our heart and soul into making it as good as we can, because the business lives and dies on the quality of the product. So we work really, really hard to make sure the product is to the highest standard that it can possibly be made, and it's gone really, really well for us.
You didn't mention how amazing it feels. I right now am entombed in merino wool because it is very cold here in Oslo. So there is tons of merino wool here. I'm sure there should be a relatively good market for you as well. Let's see, you mentioned your best friends. I'm not going to get into that in this episode because I'm sure that could be quite a long episode. But you spoke about how the money hasn't really changed you that much. How do you keep your motivation? Because, it is clothing, and this is an industry that changes quite quickly. There are new trends, new fads, new things coming in. How are you motivated to take it from your first $1 million to $10 million to $40 million? Is your motivation to make this into a $100 million business? Is it to change the world, take people to the moon? What is the next motivator for you now that you've gotten to such huge numbers? That's
a good question. I don't think the money itself is ever the motivator. And if you start to say, well, okay, we did 40, now we have to do 100 million, like it's like, for what? I mean, then that's not to say we don't set goals to get there, but then that's more just the game of winning. I mean, we want to try to continue to grow, because as we grow, we can have more impact. We can have more impact on more people. We can have more impact within our industry. We can do better R&D and product development with our suppliers. So we're always trying to grow. And we think that we could take a stab at maybe being the largest merino wool apparel brand in the world. And that's our big, hairy, audacious goal. That's our BHAG, right? But it's exciting because it's like, even though it's uncomfortable to say that to you, because I don't want to come off as like, it might sound arrogant. Like, are we really shooting for that? But when I sit around with the team and we think, hey, we can take a shot at trying to do that, this enormous thing, this really, really big thing. And how often do people get to say, like, they maybe could have a shot at being the best or the biggest in the world at something? Now, I'm not saying we're going to be. I mean, we're going to fight for it. We're going to go for it. And that motivates the team, and it motivates me, and it excites me. But that's really, I think that excites me more than just the idea of the money. Because, I live well now. I live in a small apartment, but I don't need more right now. I do love to travel, and I can afford to travel. I eat good, healthy food. I don't really buy stuff because I don't really like stuff. So I don't need much more money. So the money isn't the motivator, but doing really cool stuff does motivate me. And as we've grown, we were able to hire new amazing people to help be a part of this mission and be on the team. And each time we do that, I think, wow, well, let's see how this company unfolds over the next year. I always feel like it's day one, as I said, because, now we have a new team member on the production side and on the product development side and on the finance side. And it just changes how everything is done. And we get better and we level up a little bit. So every time we add a new person on the team, I just can't wait for a year from now. I'm impatient. Like, I want to see where we take this now. So I'm more excited about the business now than I've ever been. And that's not on account of the fact that we can make more money or we can grow in revenue. The magnitude of the impact we can make and how cool it is to be on such a motivated and exciting and fun team that's having fun too.
Yeah. Well, regarding your small flat, I think the plant behind you might disagree about you not needing a bigger place soon. So, I mean, that plant is suffering in that corner. But it goes nicely into my next...
He's happy, I promise.
We've also got one of those in the house. It's taking up a lot of space. It takes me nicely into my next question, which is, I want you to talk a little bit about sustainability and what you've just mentioned about having more of an impact in your industry. This is one of the things folks don't realize about the value of large businesses. And we'll take Coca-Cola, for example. Everyone hates on Coca-Cola and Shell and companies like that. But because they've got such big impact in terms of, so much money, they can make a positive impact on the industry as a whole. So Coca-Cola building wells, turning their plastic bottles into t-shirts and things like that. If I look at and with Shell improving, putting money into schools and creating new engineers in the countries that they're working in, the merino industry is quite an agriculturally intensive business, obviously. And I'm sure you impact the lives of the farmers who are growing the sheep that you're getting your wool from. Maybe talk to me a little bit about sort of what impact you're currently making and what impact you would like to make going forward in this space.
Well, I mean, I think the farms that I know where they're sourced from, sustainable and they're mulesing free, so they're also ethical. And the product that we are selling is completely green. I mean, it's completely biodegradable and there's no plastics in it, right? It's 100% merino wool. It's a super sustainable product. It's a super sustainable supply chain. I mean, there are definitely improvements we can make within our own supply chain, and we strive to do that. We're not a brand that positions ourselves on the sustainability thing, not because we don't believe in it or because we're not sustainable and green, which we are. It's just not how we choose to market ourselves. We're trying to appeal to carry-on travelers more than people who are buying just for the sake of being more environmentally sound. However, people who are looking for more sustainable clothing do buy off us because, like I said, ethical, sustainable, biodegradable, no plastics, etc. Yeah, I think as we continue to grow and we start to become a larger and larger company, maybe if we become a 9-figure business, it's really going to sit on me about the bigger responsibility that I have on a global scale. But right now, I already feel good about what we're doing, how we change the way people consume products, to have more environmental products, to be, we push minimalism to consume less. And my top concern is the team itself, like our team. Are they happy? Are we creating a company that allows people to live well, get paid well, That's my first responsibility above everything. But it's funny you asked that today, because just yesterday we were doing our annual planning and we were talking about, well, when it gets to a bigger place, like, shouldn't we look at what our corporate social responsibility should be? Yes, we should. But right now it's just like, hey, we have a green business and a super happy team where we give lots of opportunity to grow, make a good living, live a happy life, work from wherever in the world you want at any given moment. And that makes me feel good inside. So that's what I'm doing right now.
I love that. I want to talk about digital marketing a little bit. And I've seen that a lot of the marketing that you guys generate is actually UGC, so user generated content. I just looked at a video recently of a YouTuber talking about, I tried this Unbound Merino shirt on my recent travels, and here's my feedback. And it was a really positive response to wearing your products. Talk to me where the majority of your marketing focus, not necessarily spend, but marketing focus is. Is it on UGC influences? Is it on paid advertising? Is it 50-50? How are you going about that as a business that isn't owned by, one of these big brands?
Yeah, we're really good at paid ads. We've been tinkering with it for many, many years now. We've been in business for 8 years and we've been doing it pretty much since day one, with a couple key moments where we figured something out that really allowed us to scale a lot faster. That's been the bread and butter. But when the right influencer finds your product and then they do a YouTube video about it or a post about it, all of a sudden you see this big wave of new sales and new customers. And we've been very lucky that the right influencers have found us, have bought our products without us pitching them, and then have promoted us. And then when we see that they're driving all this traffic, we sometimes then do a deal with them. Hey, we'll sponsor your videos from here. And it works out really well for us because it's very authentic, because they were customers first. We're seeing a huge, huge increase in the impact of influencers. We don't have a very strong influencer program yet in terms of like finding the right people. We've invested very little energy and money into that, but it's had a very, very outsized impact on our sales. But where we do put our energies on Meta, because we have control. We could put the ads in, we find the ads that work, we can tweak them, make a bad ad a good one, a better one. And we've built a great machine around that. Aside from that, a little bit of affiliate, a little bit of Google. We try our hands at everything, but when we find something that works and we figure out how to scale it, we just start to just really, really focus our energy and just scale it and scale it and scale it and scale it. And the biggest impact we've seen has definitely been with Meta, mainly Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, because there is that balance between sort of the paid and organic that people are trying to figure out. Obviously, you want to spend as little as possible. I went to your website, and obviously that thing is SEO'd down to the wazoo. That must be optimized really well. Is that done in-house? Do you have a team of agencies that you work for? How have you managed specifically on the website? Is that in-house, or is that, again,
no, we have
a
freelancer that we've worked with since day one. He's been great. I talk to him for like 5 minutes a year. I barely know what he's doing. Honestly, he could be fleecing us for all I know. But, you went on the website and said that we have great SEO right down to the wazoo, as you say. I'm like, that's just makes me feel at peace that we're investing the money right. I mean, we've scaled up our budget on it a little bit year by year. But no, I think having just a great product that a lot of different blogs and different websites and, legit websites, as big as Forbes, and small blogs as small as like jimmystravelblog.com or whatever, give honest reviews and great praise to our products with lots of links. So I think the SEO happens very naturally from that. But yeah, there's also a freelance, link building and page optimization SEO freelancer guy we have.
Well, it does take years to build a good SEO strategy. So it's not something you can, in 3 months, my SEO is magnificent and I'm going to get all these organic backlinks. Have you tried TikTok Shop yet? I know you mentioned Instagram, but TikTok is probably not going to be banned. and they are starting to push more, almost like the 80s and 90s, the TV sales, where somebody would be on there saying, hey, this shirt, and did you know that merino is made not out of a camel, it is made out of, and they speak for half an hour. These slightly longer form sort of TV show live streams. Is that something that, have you done any live streams? Are you perhaps, because that might tie in really nicely with your travel side as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. We haven't done anything with that. We were starting to try TikTok, but I'm about to turn 40. So TikTok is like, it's the first mega app where I'm starting to feel like these damn kids. I have no idea what's going on TikTok. I don't even like TikTok, to be honest, but we do have a social media manager and she's tinkering with it with our head of production, and we're trying to figure it out. We don't invest a ton of energy, a ton of money into it because it's been lousy for us, completely lousy. But we're also not dumb. We know that there's a huge opportunity there. We just haven't found our way in. And we don't know if that's because our product is, premium priced, it's expensive, and it's the wrong audience, or we just don't get it. So like we do with everything, we're just kind of trying a few small things, a few experiments here and there, just waiting for that one door to open where we can sort of start to double down on something, and we haven't found it yet. But when you're talking about these 80s, 90s infomercials being a thing on TikTok, and when you were saying that, I know what you were talking about. I have not heard of that, but I am a child of the 90s, and I grew up obsessing over infomercials. I remember seeing a list of the top 100 infomercials of all time, and I counted how many I've seen, and it was over 80. I used to watch them like they were my favorite TV shows. I loved them. I thought they were hilarious. So there's a piece of me inside right now that's very excited about the prospect of becoming my own infomercial host, and that would be really fun.
I can intro you to the TikTok guys. I went to a really interesting presentation here in Oslo, and it really, I think the infomercial way is it's on the rebound. These 30-second, short little shorts, people are getting tired of them. People are really spending time on some longer form content. So let's chat about that.
Yes, well, I'll tell you, if you ever see me doing an infomercial on TikTok and it's going well, it started here. I'm legitimately excited about the idea of doing that.
Yeah, so I'll definitely do something like that. Last thing I want to touch on is personal brand and how aligned or how tied in Dan is with Unbound Merino. I see there's no, there's not Dan in there. I can't even find it. There's a D and an N, but no A. So you obviously didn't try and fit in your name in Unbound Merino. So talk to me how tightly aligned Dan is with the Unbound Merino. And I know you've pushed the whole travel side, and you've got your travelogues, and there's a lot of content about you. How much of Unbound Merino is you? And if you had to, extract yourself out of that, how would that impact the brand, do you think?
The brand doesn't need me as a personality.
Don't say that.
I am in a lot of ads. I am on the Instagram sometimes. And the reason for that is because for whatever reason, the ads work when I'm in them, and they're free to make because I'm filming them on my own iPhone. So they're easy to make and they work. So once we figured that out, we're like, all right, well, anytime we go somewhere, if we're hopping over to New York for a weekend or something, like let's just take some shots and make it an ad because we can, and it's great. So I've been involved in more ads than I'd like. It actually has gotten to the point where it's a little weird. There's been a few ads we've put a lot of money into because they work really well. And I was sitting in a sauna recently, and this one guy's looking over at me, and I'm just sitting there like kind of a little uncomfortable. I have a towel wrapped around him. I'm like, why does this guy keep looking over at me? And then I see him lean in to say something, and he's like, are you that guy from the internet? And I'm like, oh, okay. Whew. Yes.
Luckily, that was when you had your towel on, not off.
Yes, it was uncomfortable for a moment there. And if I'm on the company's social media, it's because the social media manager asked, hey, I think this would be fun. And I will support her and any ideas that she has. Aside from that, I don't even use social media all that much.
I saw your LinkedIn page. You got your last update was a year ago. I do a little bit of research before I do these. And a year ago, really? Or 6 months? And you don't even have a cover photo on LinkedIn. That's one of the first things I tell my students. You got to fix that shit. So
okay,
fix that shit.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Put a nice photo.
I'll write it down. But I'll tell you, like, The being a personal brand, or I think the value in it is immense. I have friends that they do such a good job at it, but I really think you have to be willing to do that work. And it's just not something I want to do personally right now. I think there might be a point in time when I feel like I want to give back a little bit more and teach a little bit more about what I've done in my journey, if for what that's worth to people. And I will maybe change my mind on how much I want to develop my personal brand. But until I'm willing to really do the work and do it right, I'm not really doing it. The only thing I'll do is participate in our own social media, and I'll do an interview like this because I love to talk about it. I like talking to people. I'm going out for a dinner with some friends later, just as I'm always going out. I always want to be around chatting with people, meeting new people, learning from new people. This is the extent of it for me.
You're potentially missing out on some additional advantages for the business by not pushing the personal brand side. And the reason I say this is by putting a bit of a face, even if it's not your face, if it's other folks in your team or your other co-founders, it just gives an extra level of credibility to the business. And I know as your business grows, you're probably thinking you want to extricate yourself a little bit so that if the business gets sold or you get investors, they don't just say, well, if Dan leaves or gets eaten by a bison in the tundras of Canada, then there goes the business. But there's still great advantage to people seeing who are the people behind this business. Why do they care so much? Why? I mean, you're talking about how you just want to make the best product and, it looks good on you and things like that. I think before you start losing your looks and your hair goes the same direction as mine in a couple of years, you should probably make hay while the sun shines and use your personal brand a little bit while you're still in the organization.
Okay, well, it's something to consider. I just, I don't want to get too sucked into the vortex of social media as I have before. I try not to even, but you know what, Nick? Okay, I'll give it a stab, and I'm going to start with my cover photo on LinkedIn. I'll see how that feels.
Excellent. And what I'd love to see is a photo of you shearing a sheep or at one of your suppliers saying, this is where this stuff comes from. That kind of photo, as opposed to, holding this product $27.99. So to be more on the aspects of the business.
What's your advice? Because I would consider myself a complete newbie when it comes to even the thinking behind personal brand. Is it just to be able to go and give value, teach lessons, or is it to have an expose on my life? Look I'm making scrambled eggs for breakfast. Where does one start in my position?
You're not in the funny t-shirt business where you want to tell people you grew up in a crack house and this is how you've made money and, your mother beat you. It's not that kind of story. But I think if people know that you're treating your staff well in terms of this digital nomad lifestyle, it can be talking to things like Wired or New York Times or companies like that about the working environment, how you've made it, because it's quite a story. Those kind of stories are impactful, and other entrepreneurs specifically would be really interested in hearing those type of stories. And in terms of the hands-on, in terms of who is designing these things, where are you going and visiting the farm, etc., it gives a level of credibility that's something from Target, that's even good brands can't replicate, because here are the guys who are actual adventurers, people who care about their stuff. It gives, just on the brand credibility side, a little bump. So
okay, and am I becoming an Instagrammer or a TikToker, a LinkedIn person?
I would do it in terms, you don't have to do something every day. If you do something quarterly, if you do something, but like a proper photo shoot out on a farm, like a proper video talking about this is the business. And then you can repurpose that content over 3 months. So you can do it once, because if you don't like being in front of camera, if you don't like, oh my God, every day, you create one great piece of content and you can repurpose it into blogs, interviews, podcasts, a book, a download, and reuse that content for at least 3 months. So if you just do 4 things a year, because the photography on your site is great as well, if you do 4 good things a year, that can be your personal branding, because then it can be reutilized on multiple channels by your team. So think of it, 4, you just need to do 4, get out of your, not comfort zone, but get out there 4 times a year and make a bash, and it'll give you content for the rest of the year. And it doesn't just have to be you, it can be you and your team.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm motivated.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, do it. Okay. So where can I send folks to learn a little bit more about. I'm not going to send them to your LinkedIn page. Well, actually, I'm going to send everyone to your LinkedIn page so that they can see if it's been updated.
Okay.
But I take it it's on merino.com, right?
Yeah, and Unbound Merino on the socials. Like, we're posting on Instagram. We're taking a stab at TikTok. So, you can see a bunch of older millennials trying to figure TikTok out there if you want to.
The curve on Instagram on TikTok has been quite amazing. I do ads on TikTok, and obviously I've chosen my specific demographic, but I was desperate not to go onto TikTok. But I teach digital marketing, and this is the space. But all I'm getting is Mongolian throat singers, crocodile videos. It's actually better content than Instagram sometimes. So the target market, the demographic is absolutely changing into that sort of higher income bracket. And the youngsters are moving on to the new platforms that work for them. So I definitely think it's an area that you could look at. And again, nobody knows how the hell you make money off TikTok. So I think this TikTok shop that's available to you guys, I think in Canada and the States, might be something worthwhile looking at.
Awesome.
All right. Just by the way, I don't get commission from the Chinese government or from TikTok for all of this TikTok talk. All right, Dan. Thank you so much. This has been fun. And I look forward to seeing the company growing and possibly getting a couple of merino items myself.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time.